Good morning, guys. It's a Saturday and I'm back to work on my Maryland dress. And I've made next to no effort to get anything done on this project throughout the week. I haven't done any sewing or assembly since Monday, which is really terrible. I'd hoped to get a lot done this week and it didn't happen. I worked on other things, but not this dress. The only stuff I got done relating to this project was drafting and cutting out the skirt and cutting out the mesh strips which will make up the petticoat topper and the ruffle at the bottom of the skirt. Today I would like to actually get those things together. I want to sew the net overlay onto the skirt which will make it match the bodice, and then I want to gather and attach a ruffle to the hem. I would also like to make the petticoat topper, which shouldn't be very difficult. It's just two gathered pieces of mesh sewn together, but that will be a little bit time consuming. If I get all of that done, I should have something that looks like a dress before the day is up. I'm really feeling meh about this project, and I know that's not a very descriptive word, but I like this design, but I don't really love how it's coming together, and I'm just a little bit frustrated and hoping that once the skirt's put together, once my rhinestones arrive, I'll be feeling a little bit brighter about this dress. And the only way to feel brighter about it is to keep working on it, but it's hard working on something you're not super enthusiastic about. But I will do my best and hopefully make some major progress today and get tons of stuff done. Also, I just dyed my hair yesterday and I'm not allowed to shampoo it until Monday, which is why I have purple all over my scalp. I know if I was watching someone else's video, it would probably be quite distracting, so I'm sorry for that. Anyway, it's time to get started and get to work and get lots done. So I'm going to do that and I'll take you guys along with me. So here's the point to spray netting all cut out. And here's the skirt math I did trying to figure out how long everything needs to be. And it probably isn't correct because I never seem to have things line up perfectly, but I did my best. So I have 11.5 inch and 12 inch strips, which will make up the petticoat topper, which is sewn into the dress. And then I have a 6.5 inch piece, which is going to go around the hem of the circle skirt. Speaking of the circle skirt, that's right here. It's actually a 3/4 circle skirt, just because a full circle skirt is really huge and it doesn't need to be that huge. So I went with this. It's 18.5 inches long and it has 3/4 inch seam allowances at both edges. And it's cut out of the shanting I used for the bodice, and I'm going to sew a black netting over top to give it the same sort of grayish tinge that the bodice has. I drafted this with the help of a website. This is the website. It's called circleskirtpattern.com, and you just plug in the measurements you want and then it calculates how much fabric you'll need and what measurements you should use and all that good stuff. So it's great if you don't like doing math or if you're drafting patterns late at night and just want to double check, which is what I was doing. I did have to make some changes because my circle skirt's a 3/4 skirt and this only drafts full circle skirts. It turns out that I have enough of this black horsehair left to hem the skirt with, so I'm going to use that. It'll help give the skirt a little bit more body and it will lay nicer over top of the petticoats because there will be a little bit of stiffness in the hem. I wasn't planning on doing that because I didn't think I would have enough, but I do, so I'm going to. So I made some progress. I got the mesh overlay basted onto the circle skirt, and then I put horsehair braid into the hem. I did the first step of the horsehair braid by machine, and then I turned it over and sewed it down by hand, so you just see little prick stitches through or on the top layer of material instead of a line of stitching. That took a little while, but it's done now. I did the same treatment, minus the horsehair braid, on the top maybe 8 inches of the skirt material, and this is where the zipper will be sewn in, so I wanted that edge to be nicely finished. And it's turned over twice, so there's no raw edge, and I won't have to line the interior of the skirt. Now I'm going to go ahead and sew my mesh pieces together and start gathering them down into ruffles. Here is the finished petticoat topper. I'm sorry I didn't take more video of that, but it came together really quickly. It was seriously just 3 or 4 seams and then it was done, so I didn't really think to pick up my camera until it was already finished. I'm quite happy with it. It looks a little bit uneven on the dress form, but I think it's the petticoat underneath it that's uneven, but I will measure just to make sure that's the case. I'm wearing this dress over top of my Leg Avenue petticoat, and I much prefer my organza and cotton petticoat that I made, but I'll be traveling with this dress, and the Leg Avenue petticoat squishes up into a sandwich-sized bag. I'm not even kidding. It's ridiculous how tiny this thing can be collapsed down to. So that's why I'm using it as a base instead. Alright, so over here I have all the tiny strips which will go on the hem of the skirt. So I'm going to sew those together and then get to gathering. The ruffles are done. Now it's time to pin them onto the skirt and then sew them in place. I just realized I never talked about the measurements of this, so I thought I'd do that really quickly before showing you the overskirt. The top section is 3 yards wide and 12 inches long, and the lower section is 6 or 7 yards and 11.5 inches long. The ruffle for the skirt is 6.5 inches long and it's 12 yards wide, so it's been gathered down to the same length as the hem, or width as the hem, and I just did that by eye, and I ended up with about 6 inches left over, which isn't too bad considering how long the hem is. So I'll put this in my dress form and show you how it looks. So the circle skirt has a 1-inch seam allowance at the top, which means it's too small for my dress form right now. And once that 1 inch is removed, it'll have the 26.5-inch waist size that I need, but right now it's more like 22 inches or something. It's quite a big difference that inch makes. So it's not doing a whole lot for the shape of the skirt, but you can get an idea of the length and how the little mesh ruffle looks all sewn on. I'm really quite pleased with it. I think it's going to be really cute. So it's Sunday and I've done 2 things this morning, and the first thing was raising the waistline of my petticoat topper just because it was slightly longer than I wanted it to be, and also because I'm going to be raising the circle skirt just the tiniest bit, and I'll tell you why in a sec. I'm really impressed with this netting. I got it from Joann's in the tulle section, and it's really soft and really easy to work with, but it also has a lot of body. So I'm very impressed with it, and I will definitely be getting it in other colors if I need something similar for a future project, because I really like it and it's a great alternative to the cheap nylon mesh. So I'd recommend that. Over here is the circle skirt with the ruffle attached. I drafted this before I realized I needed to let out my bodice, and I'm going to be letting the bodice out by like 3/4 of an inch, which isn't a lot, but is enough that I have to cut down the waistline a little bit to get more width. Right now this hits above the knee, just the tiniest bit, so I'm completely okay with it being hiked up by an inch. That's definitely not going to make it indecent or anything, and if that makes it fit better on the bodice, then I'm all for it. And here it is on the dress form. I'm really happy with how it looks. I think the ruffle's really cute, and I actually really like the length too, so I'm pleased with my decision making there. I don't have a whole lot to say about this, but I did want to mention that I've left the netting unhemmed intentionally. Since this is a really soft netting, I'm not worried about it being scratchy or catching on threads or anything like that, and I personally just really like the way netting looks unhemmed. It doesn't fray, so hemming or serging it isn't a requirement, and since this dress isn't going to see a lot of wear, I just decided to cut the edges as smoothly as I could and leave them that way, and I'm happy with that decision because I think it looks really soft and nice. I don't think it looks unfinished, but some people might, so I just want to say that that's an intentional decision, not me being super lazy or anything. So that's that. I think I'm going to switch focus and work on the bodice for a bit. I goofed up. I feel like that's been happening a lot on this project. I cut and basted together separate panels to make the bodice a little bit larger at the back. Since it's sewn onto this base, I'm going to have to take it apart to let out the seams. And I don't want to do that because then I have to rip out the facing and that top edge is going to be frayed, and I would rather leave it in this state and attach an extra panel to the back because the raw edges will be covered with lining and everything. But I forgot to include the fact that sewing on an extra panel is going to take seam allowance away from the bodice. Because as it is, I'm going to sew these in and the bodice is only going to be 1/4 inch bigger on each side, which isn't enough, and I feel really quite stupid and quite annoyed with myself. Just not my best work today. Hi guys, so it's a Tuesday and I had another not very productive weekend. I did manage to accomplish the major goal I set out, which was getting the skirt and the underskirt layer assembled. So that's good, but I didn't do a whole lot more than that. And I'm kind of anxious today because I've realized I have to do a lot more than that, and quite quickly too. I'm wearing this dress to a wedding in 2 weeks, and I wanted to have a 1-week buffer between finishing the dress and leaving for the wedding, which means I have 5 days to finish this project. And that's a fair amount of time. It's just, I really need to stop being so casual about it. I need to focus on getting it finished, because right now I'm more interested in other things I have in progress, so I've been working on them instead, and I'll probably continue to do that unless I make the decision to just focus on this lace dress, which really needs to get done. So I've made that decision, and I'm determined to focus on this and make major progress over the next couple days. Today's goal is getting the skirt seam sewn up, so sewn up the back and then tacked together. And I would like to get the lace overlay cut out today as well. I think I'm also going to aim to get the top gathered down, and I really wanted to add rhinestones to the overlay before gathering it, but my rhinestones aren't here yet and I'm getting a little bit concerned about time, so I might just go ahead and get it gathered today and then worry about adding rhinestones later. Oh, and on the bodice, I really want to get the extender panels for the back made up and sewn on. I tried to do that the other day and it didn't go so well. I ended up making the extenders too small. So I'm going to fix that today, and then I can sort of draft and work on the collar of the bodice tomorrow. And hopefully, my rhinestones will be here tomorrow and I can start adding those to the skirt. So lots of progress that I'm expecting to get done today, that I really need to get done today, that I probably should have gotten done a couple days ago. So I'm just gonna try not to take too many breaks and try not to get distracted and to just really focus on this project, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully a lot happens. But that's it for now. I will show you guys what I'm doing as I'm doing it, and we'll see how it progresses. Here's the lace overlay all cut out. It's 18.5 inches long and 3 yards wide. I'm not sure if it's wide enough to sit nicely over top of my skirt. I'm going to gather it down and see how I like it, and if I do like it, then that's awesome, and if I don't, then I do have some lace left over. And I really want to save it all for the collar, but I could probably add a 1 yard addition to the skirt. So I'm going to gather this down and we'll see how it looks, and then So I gathered the top layer and I decided I didn't like how it looks. On the left side, that's what it looks like normally, and then on the right side, I've pinned the lace to the hem. So I think what I'm going to do is tear out the gathers at the top and then go around and sew the lace to the hem of the skirt and then gather the top down to be level. Does that really make sense? I don't feel like that makes sense. I did the same thing on my Cinderella dress, the animated edition, where I sewed the overlay to the hem and then pulled it at the top and gathered it after it was sewn. But I think that's going to give me a nicer, more A-line shape instead of the poofy shape you can see on the left side. So that means I just did a whole bunch of work for no reason, but that's okay. That's part of sewing and being creative, I guess. But now I have to undo that and then get to sewing the lace on. So it looks a little odd right now, but I pinned the scalloped edge onto the hem of the skirt, and then I just roughly pinned the top so I could get an idea of the shape it has. And I like it so much more than just the free floppy overlay. So I'm happy that I thought of doing this because it's made a big difference and I'm a lot happier with how it looks. So now it's time to gather down the top and sew it onto the hem, and that's going to take me a long time, but it'll be worth it. So I'm going to get started on that. The lace overlay is now gathered and pinned onto the top of the skirt, and I'm really pleased with how it looks. I think it's really very delicate and pretty, and I love the scalloped edge at the bottom before the netting starts. I think it's really pretty. My only thing is that, we'll see if you can see, the netting keeps flipping up the scalloped edge, which means I have to hand sew the scalloped edge down to the netting, which is going to take me a little while, but I think it'll bother me if I don't do that. So I'm gonna do that now, and also finally sew the gathered part on, which should be really quick because the gathering is the time-consuming part. The tacking it down should only take like 2 minutes. Is that not the prettiest skirt you've ever seen? Okay, maybe it's not, but I think it's really pretty. I love how the netting looks with the scalloped edge of the lace, and I'm really happy with the way I decided to secure it instead of just leaving it as a free overlay that could move separately from the base layer of the skirt. I think they look so pretty sewn together, and I'm just really happy with it. So I'm definitely feeling a lot more enthusiastic about this project than I was feeling this morning, and I'm excited to see it come together. One of my goals for today was getting the back seam done on the skirt, but I've decided to leave it open since that will make it easier to add the rhinestones. So I'm not going to be able to complete that goal today, but it's only around 5 o'clock, so I'm still hoping to be able to get working on the bodice, which I promise